Greetings, seekers of hidden knowledge, and welcome back to the channel formerly known as Wander and Wonder, and now just absorbed into my main alias, Bliss. I hope you all have been enjoying the new format of videos in which I script and create slideshows, and just, make lists, because I guess people like lists. Anyways, we're going to go back to the main format a little bit because this really is just for me to find out what I really think, because after 1 decade plus in various rabbit holes, it becomes really hard to distinguish one's own worldview. I guess it's a sign of an intelligent person to be able to hold several conflicting worldviews at the same time. And I guess in a way that's just a lack of reconciliation, within. There's something true in each idea, each contradictory idea, and the reconciliation is that which has yet to be figured out, by the person holding the idea, which is me, because I can't possibly be wrong about anything, right? You got to try to stay humble, and yeah. Today I wanted to talk about something, that I might be wrong about, but I've been feeling as though this thing called chaos magic should be more thoroughly explored. It seemed to be a phenomenon in the magic community, which is already somewhat niche. In the pre-internet times, popularized by authors like Peter Carroll and Vamus. And basically what it said was this worldview, this metaphysical worldview that you create yourself is just as impactful, if not more so, if the symbols used therein belong to the person whose worldview is being constructed. So a lot of people are drawn to magical and occult traditions of the Western world, or of whatever pantheon, depending on who you are. And these traditions are just so obscure to the common, modern man. It takes a very long time to understand these various deities and worldviews, and basically what chaos magic consists of is creating one's own worldview based on symbols that one is very familiar with. So take, for example, we're using like a somewhat elemental emotional pantheon. So this is like the psychological way of looking at things, wherein emotions are equated with elements, and there's a little bit of poetry in there. You can feel it, that's the intuitive, that's why intuitive people are drawn to this. So there is some poetry to it. You do get some truth vibrations, like it resonates, right? A lot of new age slang coming at you today, but basically this pantheistic, pagan, psycho, emotional religion would just consist of, like, let's take the Roman pantheon for example. So you have a god, lowercase g, Mars. This god is equated with all things aggressive, all things angry, all things warring. To invoke such a deity would involve, a process of emotional stimulation, things that would make one angry. And you can see, the beating of war drums and old chants and things like this in ancient times. And you have to think, like, how is there a Mars-like invocation that's happening today, without actual direct reference to any deity? But you can think of like military ads, it's this form of like, there's the enemy, like, we gotta fight, like, we're gonna be heroes. And it's beating the war drum within. And I believe that the language used to represent the emotional states of these lowercase g gods, the ancient pagan religions, I believe that the words themselves are just simply used as placeholders to connect with that place inside of us. It is a metaphysical structure, that says this anger, this Mars is a part of us. And we look at newer monotheistic religions, say that God is all of us. You know, that within, maybe maybe the devil and God are raging inside of us, or are warring inside of us. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that, but we can continue down the line a little bit with another example. You could say that Neptune, the Roman god of water, can be equated in this psychological, pantheistic religion as that which represents sadness or emotions. And you can often see in occultism that sadness or emotions are symbolized by water. So Neptune is the personification of the emotion, sadness, poignancy, depression, maybe even, but something with the something about like the ebb and flow of emotions. You know, how states can arrive in a flash, you know, like a wave on the shore, like a tsunami even on the shore, and it can take part of structure. It can take buildings away. It can take pieces of the structure away, you know, from the individual, from the town, as these emotions wash back out into the great sea of being. But so yeah, it's interesting to examine like this emotional pantheistic religion, you know, from that type of standpoint, to say like all of this exists within us, and that this is a function of language which allows us to tap into that which already exists within. It's like a signpost along the way. You can think of it like a color. Like each word represents this certain color, but obviously there are so many colors that don't have words. And you can start getting into more specifics like magenta, you know, or lavender. And that's able to grab more obscure colors than the standard like Roy G. Biv colors. But these words, you know, that represent deities allow us to tap in to that part of ourselves. And when we're able to look at the actual elements within each quote unquote deity, you know, like what actions can evoke such emotive states, we're able to look at ritual in a new way. Certain rituals are designed for certain purposes, so whether to inspire anger and aggression and power for war, or, you know, whether to evoke a certain sensitivity, you know, so that, you know, you can reach like a deeper part of your feelings, like your emotions, you know, whether to evoke some sort of love spell, you know, where there's music playing, etc., for Venus. These are all ways of tapping in, but these entities, these deities, are often obscure to the Western mind, or probably all minds. You know, what the way that we look at things in general as a population is either as atheists or as monotheists, and a lot of people that have a pagan worldview are pretty larpy, so it's kind of cringe. But if you are interested more so in just examining the psyche, you know, you don't have to subscribe to any pagan religion. It's simply psychology. It's a way of like looking at the self. And, you know, I believe that all creations are a reflection of like this one note, you know, this one note that which resonates through all things and gives all things this like this form, which is mirrored by other forms, you know, like veins in your arm, and like the look of a tree branch, you know, without leaves in the winter. Like there are reflections everywhere in this world. Anyways, if you want to look at this worldview in a way which resonates more deeply with the individual, you begin to look at the techniques of chaos magic. It sounds like so ridiculous, but essentially what it is it makes use of the subjective viewpoint That's the self as the center. And like the things which rouse your consciousness are going to be like the centermost deity. So you could take, like there are so many different ways to approach this, but just within the realm of this like emotional pantheistic religion, you can take these deities that maybe don't really make any sense to you, and you can begin to replace them with things in your life. I made a joke about Bionicle, but really, like Bionicle or Pokemon or any of these, old school games or toys, that captured our hearts and minds when we were just simple children, they can tap into a very deep part of ourselves. These were literally elemental beings, and if each personality is thoroughly examined, then you can begin to, rather than invoking Neptune, you could invoke Galley from Bionicle. And I know that sounds ridiculous, and yeah, maybe it is. Maybe this isn't the perfect example. But basically any deity can be subbed out for something which is a representation of that deity. It's almost like there's like the emotion is the higher level of the deity, which only is a word to represent like that type of state. In polytheism, I'm not saying that I subscribe to this as my religion. I'm just simply examining like what these people who do say that is what they think. I just want to know what people actually think and how they could possibly think it. So I'm not subscribing to anything specifically myself. But one thing I did do, it's an interesting sort of thing, and I would say this is like a form of chaos magic, is to create playlists, each representing a different emotion. So I find that music is something that's so universal among humans, and it's always had its role in sacred ceremonies. And something as simple as finding music on Spotify or Apple Music or just on the internet, or just in general, just playing music and writing, you begin to categorize your tracks by the emotions which they invoke. And by doing so, you really are creating like the various chaos magic rites. And you can think of genre-based bands as like specifically devoted to one aspect of the psyche. And without realizing it, everyone is performing magic and ritual every single day. Every word that comes out of our mouth is a spell. Every thought is a manifestation of will, like somewhat. It's an imprint on this reality. It's a memory that will be logged in the great book, the records of all that is, that exist in the metaphysical. Outside of time, if you were able to observe all that has ever happened, we don't need to go into multiple timelines, but like if you were to step outside of time, everything you've ever thought, everything you've ever said would be recorded somehow, observable. And every single day, the way that we conduct ourselves is a form of magic. Like the words that we choose to say to other people, even the expressions that we wear on our face, are forms of magic. And so to understand that like something as mundane as listening to music is a form of magic begins to become very interesting. If an artist could unintentionally invoke a deity, and especially a deity which could be symbolized by some ancient, scary deity, or maybe like just the great evil or darkness itself, just embodied within song. Like we can definitely see this. Like this is provocative imagery, and to provoke, to invoke, to evoke. What is the commonality in all these words? Folk. It's very interesting. So very provocative, dark imagery, dark lyrics, things like that, may unintentionally, by the philosophy of chaos magic, may unintentionally be invoking or evoking even various deities or various forces, forces which have only been personified as deities, and the relationship with the subject and these entities cannot be verified in a way which is satisfactory to the objective mind. So we have to realize that the personifications are belonging to either an individual or a culture. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. They say, oh, you're listening to that satanic black metal again, and you say, no, it's a Christian band, like it's Norma Jean. And they're like, well, listen to it, so dark. And that's really the interesting thing now, isn't it? Like, the sound itself represents something which is cathartic and extremely heavy, punishing even. But if you look at the lyrics, it's almost like some bands are using the vehicle of music to deliver a message which is actually contradictory to the meaning which is symbolized by the music, which is implicit in the music, whereas the lyrics are an explicit contradiction of the sound there. And I feel like this is a sneaky way of getting a spell into music, just sneaking something in there. Anyways, we've spun quite the web today. I've talked about quite a few things, and just remember that magic is in the everyday. And don't forget to just stick around and check out yada yada yada. Been Bliss, formerly Wander and Wonder, signing off.